All right, welcome back, Sioux Falls teachers. We're on our final unit to prepare the students to come to the JA Finance Park on-site simulation. And the day's topic is all about budget. So once again, you need your teacher guide from the binder, and then we've got the purchase list as well printed for your use. Similar to last time, there's a lot of content that needs to be kind of condensed down. So you're going to notice in our outline, we encourage you to spend about 10 minutes talking about the basics of needs versus wants and impulse buying. Then we're going to move into the main time together, which is going to be about core budgeting. What is a budget? They're going to get to walk through fictitious budget and kind of look at budgeting elements. Then we are going to have them actually think about applying a budget for about 20 minutes. And then we want to actually add in a little bit of time at the end of this session to showcase what the students can expect when they actually go to the live event. So that's the high level overview. How we're going to get there. Again, feel free to pick and choose from the PowerPoint, but there are some really good things in here. We want to talk to them about what a budget is in general. There are vocabulary terms you can kind of walk through with the students, and again, they're in their their student workbooks as well. The main focus of this first portion is going to be needs versus wants. And one way to showcase them is to use the purchase list. Okay, so we have provided 10 copies of this. So we'd encourage you to have the students in groups of 2 or 3, depending on the number of students in your class. And we want them to go through each of these and just identify as a group if they feel like it's a need or a want. And you're going to notice that a lot of them are negotiable. And it's going to be kind of based on what they're thinking and what their experience is. Similar to this slide, you need water, but do you need expensive bottled water or do you need tap water, right? Some of that's a little bit ambiguous. So is it a need or a want? You need food, but do you need the potato chips and ice cream, right? And that's where the fun of the topic comes. So we would encourage you to have this conversation based off this purchase list. Just simply have them walk through it. You can highlight a few of them as a whole group or specifically target the ones that some of the groups maybe disagreed on. Okay, then we want them to think about, really, it comes down to what's important to you because we all have different interests and we want to do what's really important to us. And we also want to think about what are our goals and how are we going to reach those. So we have short-term goals and long-term goals that we might be working toward. And our decisions today are going to affect us being able to reach those goals. Making choices are very hard sometimes. And there's a little teaching tip note in here too, that sometimes making these types of decisions can really put strain on relationships. And so being able to walk through these, making sure you have good communication with their family members, with siblings, with a future spouse or a relationship is really, really important. Again, is it a necessity or is it a luxury? It's just some different ways for them to think about it. We do want to highlight briefly impulse buying as well, because we can all get trapped with that as well. So it's just kind of a fun way to have that conversation. So again, all of that we want to wrap up into a 10 to 15 minute overview regarding needs and wants. Okay, then we're going to transition into budgeting and we're going to come back to this purchase list. So you can keep them in their groups if you want. What they're going to then do is talk a little bit about budget and what it is. Some of them are going to have experience with it and others maybe won't. So again, it's a plan for spending their money and how JAUSA suggests that you talk about it is to have them turn in their guidebooks to this budget categories activity. So in your lesson plan, it provides you the different categories that you would put into these circles, and they're obviously all individualized too. So no two budgets are necessarily the same. If you want to, you can brainstorm those main categories as a large group in the class. If you want, you can have them take a look at this purchase list to find key categories and how they would group those together. So you're going to want to come up with a key category in this circle, and then in the outer circle are the specifics. So again, if they look on here for nail polish and shampoo, that would go out in the outer bubble, and maybe personal hygiene would be one of the main categories you want to include. So introducing the idea of a budget categories to them. I just want to pause briefly to say within the actual JA simulation, there are 20 budget categories, which I'll showcase in a little bit. And they're going to get the opportunity to look at all 20 of those broad categories and then get to shop within them as they go. So this is the first portion, is introducing budgets. Again, if you want to, you can use these slides. This is some of the typical average breakdown of how somebody would spend money on a budget. And things to consider in creating a budget. So this is going to be walking you through it. Again, the simulation focuses on their net monthly income as their starting point. If you want to, you can talk about how they would budget their time for a day. Sometimes this concept that they have 24 hours, how are you going to spend it? That can be helpful as well. But again, we're very tight on time. So if you feel like this would be a good connection for your students, feel free to use it, and you can kind of talk big picture. How much time do they spend at school? How much time do they spend on homework, eating, sleeping, family time, etc. So what you're going to do for the main activity of that budget category one is Caleb's budget, and that one is going to be found in the student workbook as well as in your lesson guide. I would encourage you to have the students work in their small groups through this, and or doing it kind of as a whole group. It kind of usually works well to let them start it and work in small groups and then pull it back whole class to make sure that you can walk through it. You'll notice you have the answer key within your teacher guide. The next portion of content that we're going to move into is actually using a budget, and how does that actually look? So again, you may have already introduced opportunity costs in an earlier one, but it's a great one to recap and review. And talking a little bit about scarcity as well. These slides are just going to kind of help talk through using a budget. How does it actually look in real life? You can compare a little bit about like the average family budget versus teen spending. And the main portion of this, there's actually multiple opportunities, but for the teachers that tested this for us last spring, they suggested that we use the high school optional activity found in your guidebook on page 29. So you're going to notice that in this top right little section, it just talks about it. And later on in your guidebook, the actual scenarios are there. So high school life scenarios. You can either break these up as students. I don't think that they're in their guidebook. I actually have to look. I can't remember. You could either cut these apart and give one to each group, or what was suggested by the people that taught last year, since you're going to be limited on time, is just to read a scenario and then talk through it big picture. In the student workbook, there is a section that I'm just going to take this down actually, sorry. There's actually a section in which they can write down that monthly budget. This page right here is going to take that scenario that you read as a whole group and break it down. Okay, we would love for you to reserve about 10 minutes to showcase what the students are going to be experiencing. So what I want to do is, again, showcase, we're going to be emailing all this information to you, so you should have it fresh at hand. But again, on the Sioux Falls resource page, there is going to be a what to expect at JA Finance Park for middle schoolers. We have tried to create this to be a PDF document that you can show from the front of the room, and you can look at these key headers. You can either read it ahead of time and just showcase it, or you can have students read each section. We tried to have corresponding pictures from our Patrick Henry friends that did this in the spring of 2004. So that's if they're recognizing anybody from the district, that's because these are real life pictures from the spring of 2024, which is fun. So once they arrive, we're going to do a big welcome, and then they're going to get into small groups of 3 to 6 students. We're going to work with teachers and administration to pre-assign those groups to make sure it's the most effective as possible. And then each student is going to get their own iPad. So everybody gets an iPad. We're going to help walk them through setting up the simulation. So once they log in, we'll provide them the username and password. They're going to get to pick an avatar. They're going to put in their personal information and school and teacher name. Then they're going to answer 3 questions about just basic budgeting. How comfortable do they feel about it, etc. And what are they most interested in? They get to pick their top 3 interests. There's going to be some random life scenarios that pop up during the simulation, and they're going to be based on what they choose there. Then they're going to get a young adult profile, and this is just going to be given to them. It's going to showcase their career for the day, their salary, credit score, whether or not they're married, and whether or not they have children. So everybody is going to have a different scenario that they inherit for the day. From there, the students are going to start rotating to 20 different budget categories. So there's going to be a different volunteer at each one of these expense categories. And the volunteer is going to provide some information and advice to them on things to consider in setting a budget for that specific category. Then their students are going to actually get to set the budget for that category for their specific life scenario. And then they're going to rotate to the next category. So this is the bulk of our time with the students. They really get the opportunity to meet a variety of volunteers and hear real world advice on how to build a budget, which is very fun. You can note here, if you want, that these are the 20 different budget categories, main topics that they're going to be setting for throughout the day and hearing from throughout the day as well. There will be a lunch, and so a lunch break, I should say. So all students, volunteers, and teachers need to bring in a sack lunch, but there will be a time where we pause to be able to eat before we finish out our day together. The final portion is actually allowing the students to go in to each of those budget categories and they get to shop. So they're drilling into each one. For transportation, for example, they get to go choose which car they're going to select. Do they want that sports car? Do they have 2 or 3 kids in which they need to make sure that they can fit? Are they looking forward to long distance and want good mileage, or are they going to want to pull a boat? All of those different things and ideas are going to be folded in for them to make those decisions. You're going to notice that we're going to encourage the students to buy their needs first. There are some non-negotiables. If they have children, they have to purchase childcare, for example. They are going to have a variety of different options under the wants categories that maybe they aren't going to choose to do, or maybe they're going to have to return some things they purchased under wants in order to meet their basic needs. So that is probably the most fun and engaging portion of this. And again, the volunteers are right there to help coach them and answer questions if they need to, etc. From there, they're going to do a short survey for JA of South Dakota, and then we're going to gather them all back together to do a main debrief before we get them back on the buses to head back to the school. You're going to notice we have provided a sample schedule. Those times are a little bit tentative based on arrival times, etc., but we will be pacing the day throughout. And you will also notice that we do have a list of frequently asked questions that you can showcase to the students. If you have any that you think of prior to going into this session, please email us, let us know. We will continue to add to this document as we gain experience. So if you have student questions that come up, please be sure to let us know, because we'll make this document even better as we go. So those are pretty self-explanatory, but you can read those through with the students as well. So again, we would love for you to go through this document showcasing that experience so that they kind of have an idea of how it's all coming together. So I usually just end with a connection of the content for today to the simulation, and it is the main content. So the idea of budgeting is the ultimate goal and the experience that we want these students to have when they leave the JA Finance Park simulation. So knowing what a budget is, the baseline of a budget, the students can know that it's going to be a monthly budget that we focus on. And throughout their experience, they're going to be building that budget. And then at the end, they're going to be able to use that budget as an idea, kind of that scale of how much they should be spending in each of those categories. And they're going to get to actually go start shopping within the simulation as well. So Let us know if you have any questions. We look forward to your participation once again, and we really look forward to seeing you soon at the live event. Thanks so much.